You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My good host is my co-host is my good friend Sean T. And in addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're all here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. Sean, the Super Bowl is behind us. We are officially in off-season mode. But before we get to an impressive and important off-season coming up, how about a word from our sponsor?
Yep, our show is sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For more than 30 years, they've been providing Packer tickets to Packer fans, as well as Bucks, Brewers, and Summerfest tickets. Find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. That's theticketking.com. And you can watch every episode of No Huddle Radio on Packers Talk Network on YouTube with Gil and myself, even during the offseason. Go to YouTube, type Packers Talk Network in the search bar, click on the PackersTalk.com link with the green background, the yellow goalpost, click on the bell, subscribe, turn notifications on, join the discussion, and chat with us live. And yeah, Gil, it was obviously it was a Super Bowl that was just kind of meh. It wasn't. The halftime show, incredibly entertaining, in my opinion. But that we don't have to talk about the halftime show.
Yeah, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, the game as a whole in general, rabbit hole. Is that a Bad Bunny joke, by the way?
No, it wasn't, but okay.
Yeah, hey, it works, man.
It works, exactly.
I didn't know we were becoming a punny podcast, So yeah, we're a bad punny. That's what this is, bad punny.
Oh.
Bad bunny. We're bad punny. But the game as a whole, though, we didn't see a touchdown until later in the second half. Seattle clearly looked like the better team. They won 29-13 against the Patriots, the AFC champion Patriots, a team that probably doesn't get there if Bo Nix isn't hurt in the AFC. If Bo Nix plays in the AFC championship game, New England probably doesn't play in that game. And Seattle just looked dominant. And it's two straight years where the NFC teams, the NFC champions, have dominated the Super Bowl, Gil. So obviously, a lot of offseason ahead. You know, we got the NFL draft coming up. Obviously, we have free agency coming up in less than a month or about a month or so, and there's going to be a lot of movement. There's going to be a lot of roster reconstruction and deconstructing, reconstructing, whatever you want to call it. But you know, we're going to get into the biggest needs of the Packers heading into the offseason. But you watch that Super Bowl, Gil, though. You watch how Seattle just dominated, and Philly the year before dominated the Kansas City Chiefs. And after watching Super Bowl 60, I mean, coaching-wise, let's just break it down from there. Coaching-wise, what do the Packers need to do to get back to the big game? And then we're going to break it down with the offense, the defense, what needs to be done. But coaching, what is it that you take away from what Seattle did so well that the Packers need to do better coming up next season?
I think there's two things. Two key takeaways in my mind. The first thing is the Seattle Seahawks do not beat themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the Packers far too often this past year did. And it's hard enough to beat other teams in the NFL when you don't have to beat yourself. So, you know, that I am tired of saying that the only team that can consistently beat the Packers is the Packers. I don't want to say that next year very often, and I really would like to have things cleaned up in that regard. And then the other thing is just how big of an impact a dominant pass rush can have.
Yeah, and we'll break that down in a little bit. You know, we're going to go phase by phase. And with the coaching, though, specifically, you mentioned that how Seattle doesn't beat themselves, and that's coaching, man. Mike Macdonald is a tremendous head football coach. He's a tremendous football coach in general. That's why he rose through the ranks so quickly. And clearly he was the right decision to take over Seattle when they decided to move on from Pete Carroll, a Super Bowl champion himself with the Seahawks, a two-time NFC champion. Unfortunately, that's a sore spot for us Packer fans because we were kind of the butt end of that. But with the coaching, though, I think what stuck out to me, Gil, in that Super Bowl, and even the game before, the NFC Championship game, when the Seahawks beat the Rams in a tight game, and when they beat the 49ers in the divisional playoff game, when they crushed them, they stuck to their game plan on both sides of the ball. They took care of the ball on offense, like you said, and they just kept attacking on defense. And it wasn't like they had some blitzes and everything like that. They had some exotic looks and everything like that in defense, but they just kept attacking. And that is something where their ability to stay on the gas yet play disciplined football, we got to find a way to get that formula done, because that's what Philly did. That's what Philly did the year before, even though they didn't blitz. I know in that Super Bowl last year against the Chiefs, they didn't blitz once. They pressured no more than 4 at a time, but you could still be an attacking defense without blitzing. It kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but if you have that game plan, if you have that kind of mindset installed in your team on both sides of the ball, that's what leads to dominant performances like we saw on Sunday.
Yeah, and it's a mentality. And, before the Packers made the decision to bring back Matt LaFleur, I had come out and basically said, I think they're better off moving on. And part of the reason was the lack of killer instinct. You've heard Matt LaFleur say, all gas, no brake. And it's a great slogan, but they don't live it. They don't execute all gas and no brake. And, how many times last year did the Packers see leads slip away late in games? Too many. I mean, out of the 7 regular season games they lost and the tie, more than half of them were games where they had a substantial lead and could not hold it, could not have that killer instinct, that attack mentality. And I hope that that's something that the team can find and adapt for this year, because if they don't, I'm afraid we're going to see more of the same.
Yeah, I think that's what Matt LaFleur, if I was Matt LaFleur watching this, I'd be like, man, we gotta keep attacking on both sides of the ball, no matter what, from start to finish. Because you mentioned it, just the amount of games they did not finish this year, where the Green Bay Packers could have easily been a 1 seed in the NFC playoffs this year. They could have. Injuries or no injuries, they could have been a 1 seed. You don't know how it's going to go, but the amount of games that they blew, the amount of leads that they blew this year was just mind-boggling. The amount of times where they lost 2 games this year where they didn't punt once.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen, So Seattle's not, it wasn't the most lethal offense. Their defense is really good, but they're not the most lethal offense yet. You saw the way I saw it, where the Packers, they were, Matt LaFleur mostly tries to coach not to lose more than coaching to win. And when you coach not to lose, you don't win. It's prevent defense prevents you from winning. That's kind of the old adage right there. And with Matt LaFleur, I look at the NFC Championship game between the Rams and the Seahawks, where the Seahawks, what they were facing on their final offensive drive of that game, they were facing 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 or something like that. And they find old reliable Cooper Kupp, who's been doing it forever, and Cooper Kupp barely gets the first down. I feel like Matt LaFleur in that situation would have ran the ball, been like, okay, we're going to trust our defense. We're just going to kill some clock, make the Rams burn a timeout. Seattle was like, screw that. We're going for the first down, because we know we cannot give the Rams the ball back, or else Matt Stafford's going to march down on us. And I just want that mindset more so on both ends. And also on defense too, where it's like, keep attacking. Don't sit back. Don't sit back in coverage. Keep pressing. Force the issue. Force something bad to happen on the other side than waiting for something bad to happen.
It's an attitude of control. It's taking control of the game, putting the game in your guys' hands. If you believe in Jordan Love, if you believe that Jordan Love is a top 10 quarterback in this league, and I do, you want the ball in his hands on 3rd and 8. You want him to find that open receiver and make that play so that you finish this game with the football, and whoever the opposing quarterback is doesn't even get a chance to come back and win this game. And that's the difference in attitude that I really want to see next year from this team.
Gil, I think you and I are in agreement where Jordan Love took a step forward this past year as a quarterback. You're paying him a lot of money. Trust him to win you the game. And Matt LaFleur, I felt like the coaching where Matt LaFleur let Jordan Love in, he's kept Jordan Love in the game when they played Arizona earlier this year, where they were down by 3. They were in field goal range, 4th and 2 though. And Jordan Love said, no, we need to keep the ball. And he trusted him. And they got a first down. And then they ended up scoring a touchdown. It ended up being the game-winning touchdown. and they win a game in Arizona that was a bit of a slugfest. There needs to be more of that with trusting number 10 with the football in his hands. And I want to kind of segue into this, Gil. We didn't really mention this when we were chatting beforehand, what we're going to discuss today. But the front office, though, what do you think the front office needs to do when it comes to building this the new team, the 2026 Green Bay Packers, in order to get back to Super Sunday? Is there anything you want to see them do specifically in free agency or the draft? What is it that you want to see them do?
I want to see them put together a defense that can be more aggressive and more effective. Mm-hmm. And I think it starts with two key positions. And I know we're going to get into the details a little bit later, but defensive tackle and cornerback, to me, whichever order you put them in, that's 1 and 2 on my list right now.
For sure. And I'm with you there. Now, it seems like the Packers, and a lot of teams do this, it's not just the Packers, but when they're picking in the early rounds 1 and 2, you're typically picking guys with higher upside, not really guys who are like, hey, they've tapped out their potential. They don't have much more wiggle room. Blake Martinez is a prime example where that guy was probably a second-round talent when he came out of college. But the thing is, he didn't have a lot of room to grow, and it showed because Blake Martinez was a very good pro. He was in the league for 6-7 years. He was a very good pro, but he didn't really grow from his rookie year. Evan Williams kind of strikes me a little bit like that, but I think he still has a little bit of room to grow. But he was a guy who was ready right away. But again, he was a 4th-round pick. I do want to see Brian Gutekunst. Now, he doesn't have a 1st-round pick, obviously, because of the Micah Parsons trade. I want to see him draft guys because I think this team is so close to breaking through. They just got to figure out how to finish. Drafting guys who are more ready now, not guys who are going to be ready in 3 or 4 years from now. Does that make sense? It
makes a lot of sense. And if you look, the Packers did in some ways have the luxury of drafting guys who they could gradually get into the lineup and develop. But there comes a time when the finish line is in sight and you just want to get there. This team, since they made the trade for Micah Parsons, you're looking at a 3-year window really to win the Super Bowl. And year 1 is in the rearview mirror already. Mm-hmm. It is time to put your cards on the table and go all in and, get those last pieces. If you wait 3 years for the next, Lucas Van Ness or Rashawn Gary, you may not have Micah Parsons. You may not have Jordan Love. You may not have, some of the key players on this team that make them a contender. So I think that not being as developmental with your 1st-round pick or in this case, now your 2nd and 3rd-round pick makes a lot of sense. Yeah, they may not have as high a ceiling, but let's hit the ground running and not have as low a floor.
And I do feel like it's kind of a double-edged sword because it'd be nice. I feel like where this team is at right now, you want guys who can come in and play right away and be impact players right away. But, you see where the Packers drafted Clinton Dix in 2014, and he was great his rookie year, but he never got better. And Clinton Dix was a big part of that team that should have went to the Super Bowl in 2014.
Yep.
We're just going to leave it at that. And it's so you take that risk where it's like, okay, like, you may get 1 or 2 really good years, but then after that, it's going to be, they're only going to go down at the end of the rookie contract. You don't really necessarily want that, but maybe they're just a steady pro and they can help right now. And I will say this too, where look what Seattle did when building this Super Bowl team this past year. The biggest move they made last year was moving on from Geno Smith, who seemed like he was a decent starting quarterback when he took over for Russell Wilson after they traded him away to Denver a few years ago. They trade Geno Smith away to the Raiders for a 3rd-round pick. He's awful. And the Raiders have the 1st overall pick. And they signed Sam Darnold in free agency. And Seattle knew, like, hey, we had to upgrade the quarterback spot. We had to take a swing because we felt like that was the difference between us being the 8th team in the NFC the previous 2 years and not being in the dance. And look at that. They went from 8th seed to the number 1 overall seed to Super Bowl champion. I'm not saying replace Jordan Love. That's not what I'm getting at. Jordan Love is fine. Jordan Love is more than fine. But don't be afraid to take a big swing this offseason at an area where maybe not quarterback, but maybe an area where we think we're okay, but we're not 100% there, and we could get a clear upgrade maybe this offseason. I don't know if that guy exists, but I just think that way. John Schneider came from the Ron Wolf tree, the Seattle Seahawks GM.
Right.
Brian Gutekunst is buddies with him. Get on that same wavelength.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And it hasn't been the approach recently for this team, and maybe it's time they change that approach. Sometimes the coach that gets you from bad to good isn't the coach that gets you from good to great. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's the same with approaches. The approach that gets you to be a contender isn't necessarily the same approach that you take to team building when you want to become the champion and take that last step.
I do think the position where it's possible, where they may make an upgrade that we don't really sense, could be wide receiver.
Really?
I think wide receiver or running back. I think it could be a skill position on offense, which would be very surprising because Josh Jacobs has been an upgrade over Aaron Jones overall since he's been here.
Yep.
I love Aaron Jones. It's no disrespect to him. I think Josh Jacobs has been that good. Christian Watson is outstanding. So maybe receiver, and he's in line for a big contract. Maybe receiver, it doesn't happen. But I feel like if Brian Gutekunst is going to, and Brian Gutekunst is not afraid to take a big swing. He traded for Micah Parsons. That alone is a huge swing, trading 2 first-round picks for one player. The Packers don't do that. And Micah Parsons is worth it. Maybe there's something cooking that they're thinking at 1265 Lombardi where it's like, hey, this guy could take us from here to here. And I don't know if that guy's there, but who knows?
See, I would pick a different position on offense than either running back or wide receiver.
Would you pick tight end or O-line?
O-line. Because I think Josh Jacobs is good enough, more than good enough, but how many times was he being hit behind the line of scrimmage last year where, his numbers of gaining yards after first contact was just as good as it was the year before, but that first contact was happening way too quickly, and he gained 400 fewer yards and averaged almost a half a yard per carry less. You get that offensive line cooking, and I think the running backs, the quarterback, and the wide receiver, you'll see the benefit ripple across the offense.
Maybe we'll see David Bakhtiari come out of retirement. I doubt it. Hey, I would welcome back Agent 69 in a heartbeat. But I hope he's doing well. I bet he's doing well and enjoying. I don't even know if he's officially retired, but he's done playing football. So.
Yeah, he's done.
So let's move on though, Gil. Real quick, let's go through each phase of the team. Where after watching the Super Bowl, what do you think the biggest offseason needs are? And special teams after you watch the Super Bowl. To me, I'm just gonna say real quick. Just do your job and be adequate. It's that simple. Seattle's kicker, Jason Myers, was in line for Super Bowl MVP after he went 5 for 5 on field goals. There were no significant penalties by the Seahawks, no turnovers because of special teams. Their punter, Michael Dixon, was terrific. He had 3 punts inside the 20. He put the Patriots in such a bind just with his punting alone. Packers, luckily, they're in a good spot for the foreseeable future. Punter with Daniel Whalen, he's outstanding. But I feel like the Packers in the special teams game, if you learn anything from Seattle, find a guy who can make a difference in the return game. Or maybe put Keyshawn Nixon back at punt returning and kick returning because he's a 2-time All-Pro as a return man. Try to improve the return game because Rashid Shaheed was a difference maker for Seattle when they acquired him at the trade deadline this year.
He really was, and especially punt returns. I mean, I think Savion Williams was adequate at kick return, but the punt returners were just bad. I mean, there's no other way to put it. They were just bad. And, with special teams, I think, first do no harm. The old doctor's credo there. I don't think we're there yet. I want to at least get there.
Just do your job. Special teams literally comes down to just do your job. And I know that's easier said than done, but you don't have to be creative or cute on special teams. Just block your guy, block your gap, do your job. That's what it comes down to. And too many times the Packers just screwed around on special teams this year, and it was always penalties or blocked kicks or missed kicks or failed or short returns, whatever it may be. Seattle showed where it's like, just be sound in what you're doing, and that's the difference between winning a game and losing a game. It really is.
Yeah, it really is.
Defensively, Gil, after you watched the Seattle pass rush, obviously, It's I think what went to show when watching Seattle's defense is you cannot have enough talent in those trenches, man. You really cannot. Always fill that covered whenever you have the chance.
Yeah, you need a strong defensive line. And, they got some pressure from the interior also. And after Devontae Wyatt went down, the Packers got next to none. And even if Wyatt is back and better than ever, they need more juice coming from the inside, I think, just so that there are, alternatives out there that the Packers can utilize and create a little more havoc and a little more confusion and just make offenses hesitate a little bit and react rather than dictate the tempo of a game. So I think, getting pressure on the quarterback, it'll be very interesting to see what Jonathan Gannon does, but more talent on that D-line is very necessary.
You have a superstar, obviously, Micah Parsons, but he's recovering from a torn ACL. Rashawn Gary's probably going to be let go. Lucas Van Ness is going to be this is a big year coming up for him because he's going to get a much bigger role. And I think he got better as the year went on. He's not living up to a first-round pick billing. He's not yet, but he got better this year. Yeah. Devontae Wyatt is a budding star. I'm with you where you build those trenches where Seattle, their D-line, man, 6 sacks, 11 quarterback hits, 8 tackles for loss. And also not only that, and I think the Packers are actually in a good spot here where I feel like you get a few more pieces on that D-line. You add some guys in the draft. Maybe you add a guy or two in free agency. Maybe Barron Sorrell, Colin Oliver, those guys take steps going into year 2 after their rookie seasons where I feel like Seattle's ability to fly to the football and tackle is so critical. And the Packers are actually pretty good.
They are.
They are very fast. They're a very fast defense. They fly to the football. They tackle really well. I love Nick Emanwari from Seattle who plays in the slot. But we got a guy in Javon Bullard who's an awesome slot guy too. So I feel like the Packers are actually closer to Seattle's defense than you may think. You just need to build a little more in the trenches depth and get some more depth there.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way.
Yeah, and I think too where it's like, you just know, though, after seeing Philly's defense the year before, you saw maybe not superstar D linemen, but a lot of D linemen getting bloated contracts, pass rushers getting bloated contracts because of what Philly did to Kansas City. You're going to see that again this offseason. So you just wonder where it's a situation where the Packers, I think they want to extend Devontae Wyatt. You have the big contract with Micah Parsons. Do you still hold on to Rashawn Gary, or do you try to negotiate a pay cut? I mean, what do you do? What do you do with him? Do you I would like to see him back, but on a much cheaper contract, in my opinion.
I would like to see him back on a cheaper contract as well. And I don't know if he would agree to it, but I would highly incentivize his contract because I think he needs a little bit of a fire lit under him. The way he sort of disappeared in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
I never questioned his work ethic before the second half of this year, but boy, am I questioning it now.
Yeah, and you wonder if there's going to be conversations too about having him rush from the inside more often.
Yep. It's like, he's capable, and so is Van Ness.
Yeah, it's just too many. But I think I'd rather have Van Ness on the edge because he gives you a little more speed. And Van Ness is actually very good when it comes to containing, where Rashawn Gary was very good at that earlier in his career, but he just seems to be slowing down to the point where opposing quarterbacks and runners know, we have 52 on the edge, we can run right around him. And I feel like that's becoming a bit of a problem where maybe him as an inside pass rusher, an inside player is better. What I'm secretly hoping for, Gil, I doubt it happens, but Dallas is paying Oso Odighizuwa. They're paying Quinnen Williams, who they just made a big trade for, and they're paying Kenny Clark as well. That's 3 D tackles with big contracts. Kenny Clark could be a cap casualty. And if he hits the streets, is there a chance he may come back? If so, to Green Bay, if he's open to that, I'm certainly open to that because it would be very much a discounted contract.
Oh, yeah.
It wouldn't count against the compensatory pick formula for the Packers for 2027. That could be a sneaky, nice addition if you can bring Kenny Clark back to Green Bay if Dallas decides to part ways.
I would love to see him back. Obviously, there would be lower expectations as to what he could do compared to what he did in his prime, but he'll stuff the run. He'll get occasional pressure on the quarterback. He's a leader. and he was always a great Packer. So I'd welcome him back for sure at the right price.
I would say also the front office. I want to add on, just go back a little bit. If I'm the front office, look to add maybe a veteran or two to help you finish games. Because this team has been the youngest team in football the last 3 years by average age. You may need a veteran at this point just to come in and show the way. Mercedes Lewis was so valuable to this football team earlier in Matt LaFleur's tenure, just having that veteran leadership. Aaron Rodgers, terrific veteran leader. Devontae Adams, terrific veteran leader. I'm not saying go dinosaur age, Stone Age or anything like that. But maybe a veteran or two at key positions could be very helpful for this football team.
Calais Campbell, he is a dinosaur, but he could still play.
Yeah, is he going to play another year?
We'll find out, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I would welcome him. Absolutely. That guy's
for 1 year? Yeah, absolutely.
Most well-respected football players in the game during his time, for sure. I would 100% welcome that. And then lastly, Gil, let's talk about the offense. You saw how suffocating it was for the Patriots offense to get anything going on Super Bowl Sunday, where they could not protect Drake May. Their left tackle, Will Campbell, he's a rookie. He's a fourth overall pick in last year's draft. He allowed 14 pressures alone in that game. You saw it with the Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl where they couldn't protect Patrick Mahomes. I feel like obviously people are looking at Seattle and Philly, the last two Super Bowl champs, like we got to get to the quarterback. Yeah. But I'm looking more so at the Chiefs and I'm looking more so at the Patriots and the Chiefs. And I think it's more so, damn, we got to protect the quarterback better. We got to find, we got to invest I would rather invest in the O-line than the D-line if it was my list of things to do, because you can't have enough good quality offensive linemen to protect your quarterback, especially when you got a franchise guy like Jordan Love.
Yeah, it's very important. And, you got Rasheed Walker, who's probably out the door as a free agent. Elton Jenkins, who may be out the door because of his high cap hit. Sean Ryan, who is an unrestricted free agent. I doubt all three of them are back. I'd be surprised if more than one of them is back. So on the one hand, continuity is not necessarily going to be there. But on the other hand, here's your opportunity to improve that offensive line. And boy, do we need it. Boy, do we need it. We talked earlier about the run blocking and how they've struggled. And let me ask you this, Sean, because last year, the strategy was we're going to get bigger and more physical with the offensive line. You draft an Anthony Belton. You move Jenkins to center. He's much bigger than Josh Myers was. And then you add Aaron Banks at left guard. These are maulers. These are supposed to be big physical guys. It didn't work. It kind of backfired. Do you change that approach when building an offensive line this offseason or adding to it?
Just there's so many ways to determine what makes an offensive lineman talented. The big thing with me is like footwork and hands. And that comes down to a GM. That comes down to a front office where it's like, hey, we got to find the linemen who are best with their footwork and best with their hands. And it's not necessarily like, oh, like this guy's an excellent run blocker. This guy's an excellent pass protector. Find a guy who has good fundamentals. And I think that's where Aaron Banks gets in trouble a lot, is his fundamentals are not very sound. They're not very crisp most of the time. Like when his fundamentals are correct, he's a mauler. Yep. Sean Ryan's the same way. I think Elton Jenkins is much better suited to be a guard. I was excited for him to play center, but it just didn't really work out that well. I think it's just a matter of finding guys who are just better with the fundamentals. And that comes down to maybe coaching it up better or just finding guys who can do that. But there's a reason the best O-linemen never hit the market in the NFL. It's because they get paid very well, and those teams definitely value those guys, where it's hard to find good linemen. It's hard to find good O-linemen. Brian Gutekunst has been really good overall finding good O-linemen, in my opinion. He's
on day 3 of the draft.
Exactly. I mean, he drafted Zach Tom, Rasheed Walker, and Sean Ryan all in the same year, all in the same draft class. Zach Tom's obviously getting paid a lot of money, and deservedly so. Rasheed Walker's going to get paid a lot of money, where he's not a terrible offensive tackle, but Jordan Morgan I feel like is going to be an upgrade over him at left tackle. I really do feel that. Sean Ryan is an interesting piece where I think he was the same level as John Runyon, but John Runyon got paid $10 million a year too. Don't know if the Packers are willing to pay that. So it's going to be very critical. And And Daryl chiming in on the chat where on the defensive side of the ball, maybe Jamel Dean or Jalen Watson at corner could be nice additions to the Packers defense. If they hit the market, yeah, it'd be nice. Yeah. But if those guys do hit the market, they're gonna get paid a lot of money, Daryl. I bet. And Jamel Dean, I'd love to have because that guy's an absolute ball hawk, and you give that guy the Packers pass rush with Micah Parsons. That would be a nice addition for sure. A guy who has a knack for finding the football.
Got to have more than 7 interceptions for the season. That number has to be much higher.
Yeah, and I do want to note one more thing on the offensive side of the ball where with Seattle in the Super Bowl, they stuck with the run game. Kenneth Walker won Super Bowl MVP. He was magnificent. 27 carries, averaged 5 yards a carry. He had a couple catches out of the backfield, some big plays in that game. Having that change of pace or having that running back who could do that, I feel like Josh Jacobs can do that. You got to give him a better front to run behind, though. And then can Marshawn Lloyd get healthy? Please. Please.
If only.
I hope so because I feel like the change of pace running back is something the Packers offense desperately needs. Marshawn Lloyd is that guy. We just need to see him play, Gil. We just need to see him play.
Yeah, 1 game in 2 years is not a good start. I'm not saying it's his fault, but they got to get this kid on the field.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully the Packers, next year around this time, Gil, we're talking about the Packers bringing Super Bowl trophy number 5 back home. But who knows? It's an interesting couple of months that are going to be coming up. Brian Gutekunst has a new contract. Matt LaFleur has a new contract. Maybe having that security will help a little bit. And maybe the experiences from this past year where football, you learn a lot from adversity. And maybe they'll be good for this young Packer team. But who knows what lies ahead for the Green Bay Packers in 2026.
Yeah. One other thing, though, that just real quick, they've got to keep their key players healthy. And I know that's random and it's not something that you have in your control. But losing your best receiver weapon in tight end Tucker Kraft midway through the season, losing Micah Parsons, having your best offensive lineman in and out of the lineup in Zach Tom, who played through injuries all season, losing your best defensive tackle, Devontae Wyatt. Maybe the number of injuries wasn't really high, but the players who were injured were all impact players, and that really hurt this team.
So, bummer we didn't get to see much of Christian Watson and Tucker Kraft together on the field at the same time because if those two guys are healthy together, I think this Packers offense takes a whole.
We had a game and a half, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, it wasn't.
And at that point, Watson was still ramping up, right?
What's that?
I mean, at that point, Watson was still ramping up. He was just getting back into the swing of things, and then boom. So
there's reason for optimism for sure too. You just hope that these guys who are recovering from these serious season-ending injuries, hopefully they recover. They recover well. You don't want a David Bakhtiari situation to happen again where he doesn't play he plays 7 more games or whatever it was after that ACL tear, which was just so critical. And you just felt so bad for the guy because he was so good and he earned that contract when he got it too. Just a woulda, coulda, shoulda. That's football for you. Yeah. Gil, before we get to some trivia, what articles do you have coming up online for the Packers Post at Cheesehead TV? Long off season.
Well, for the Packers Post, I took a look at, for example, I took a look at some of the players that need to have bounce back seasons in 2026. Not guys who were injured, but guys who just kind of had disappointing seasons and could improve and get back to form and maybe help this team. And over at Cheesehead, I addressed the offensive line and the importance of just getting better run blocking and just better play overall out of that O-line because you cannot – it has a ripple effect across the entire offense.
How many new starters do you think we have next year in the O-line, Gil? Just right before we get into free agency and everything. How many new starters?
3.
Do you think? I think so too. I think so
3.
too. Yeah. I would welcome Elton Jenkins back on a discounted deal though. So
I would, but I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I don't think so either. Someone's going to pay him. So it is what it is. That's the business of the game. I have to get a new Packer jersey then because of that. So Gil, how about some trivia?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, after more than a 2-year battle with cancer, it's great sadness to report that former star actor and diehard Packers fan James Vanderbeek passed away on Wednesday morning at the age of 48. Again, Vanderbeek, diehard Packers fan. You could do a Google search, see many photos of him spending some time on game days at Lambeau Field, or listen to him talk about his love for the Packers. And we've seen some crossover from some former Packers onto the big screen, much like Vanderbeek at Packer games. And back in 2015, Pitch Perfect 2, Gil, it hit the big screen across the country, had quite a few Packer players in it. Gil, name the 5 former Packers to have a role in Pitch Perfect 2.
Clay Matthews was one.
Yeah, absolutely. He was flexing and everything.
He was. That's the easy one off the top of my head. Boy.
I mentioned one of them a few times during this episode today.
You mentioned him a few times during this episode.
Think O-line.
What was that?
Think O-line.
Think O-line. Elton Jenkins wasn't there. He wasn't there yet.
No. We were talking 2015, remember?
Okay, David Bakhtiari is 2.
Yep, okay. Still think O-line. The rest of the guys are O-linemen. And they were 2 of them were pretty popular. One was kind of obscure, but in Packer world, he was kind of popular.
I am drawing a blank. It's been a long time since I saw that movie.
It's been 11 years, so I get it. So
yeah,
you got the first 2, Clay Matthews and David Bakhtiari. The other 3, TJ Lang.
Yep.
Josh Sitton.
Yep.
And Don Barclay.
Yes, Don Barclay.
Yeah, they all had a cameo role in that. Aaron Rodgers' younger brother, Jordan Rodgers, he was in the movie as well. So Rodgers and those 5 performed Destiny's Child song Bootylicious in acapella in the movie. It's very entertaining. And for what it's worth, there have been a couple movies between Pitch Perfect 2 and today, which included some former Packers. Those movies weren't available in theaters across the country, only locally in Wisconsin. 2017's The 60-Yard Line included former Packers John Kuhn, Mark Tauscher, and Amon Green. And 2025's Green and Gold included former Packer Leroy Butler. Craig T. Nelson was the lead in Green and Gold, Gil.
There you go.
Very good movie. If you can find it on streaming. And for those listening, watch Green and Gold. It's a terrific story. It's really well done.
All right. I will look for that. No question.
We got plenty of offseason ahead, Gil. Yeah. Right. I'm giving you content right there.
You got it. We've got time, right? So
Craig T. Nelson, that's coach, man.
That is.
Yeah. And Mr. Incredible.
All right. Well, that is it for us today. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter at GoPackers and at GBPackers. We're up to date on all things Packers, or to ask us questions. Or you can email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you're subscribed to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show, and thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.